What's good, guys? LM7 here, doing the second comparison for the 2017 summer wave. This time we're going to be looking at the last comparison I can actually make, and that is to the Jedi Starfighter with Hyperdrive. Now it's actually going to be a two-part comparison because there's no one set that actually equals the newer set, so we're going to just do it in both ways. So what we're going to start off with is we're going to take a look at Saesee Tiin's Jedi Starfighter from a couple of years ago, and then we're going to compare it to the new Obi-wan's Jedi Starfighter from the set itself. And then we are going to take a look at the old Hyperdrive ring and the new Hyperdrive ring. So first off, Saesee Tiin's Starfighter has 300 and some pieces. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was $34.99, kind of expensive for a Jedi Starfighter. And then Obi-wan's Starfighter obviously came with the ring and is $100 even. So looking at the two fighters themselves, Saesee Tiin's fighter is actually a tad bit longer than Obi-wan's. I don't know, can we see that better if I put it like this? Let me line them up. Yes. Well, in that regard, no. Okay. And no, we actually can't see that at all. Awesome. So what I'm going to do is, just for now, I'm going to push the rings away. And if we back these fighters up, Saesee Tiin's fighter is just a tad bit longer than Obi-wan's, and I can't really, yes I can pinpoint why it is. Looking at Saesee Tiin's fighter, here's the big wing piece that ends right here, and then on the body itself you have a 3x6 wedge plate, and then you have another little section on the front. Whereas then in Obi-wan's, here is the big wing plate here. Then the wedge plate is all the way up here and is the end of the ship where the wing plate, so you're missing that little top section right there. And that could give it a little more room. Yeah. And if you want to take an even more precarious look, you can see it's a little more narrow here on Saesee Tiin's, so they elongated it just a little bit more, where Obi-wan's is a little fatter here at the end, but I don't think that really hinders either model in any way. Looking at them, looking at Saesee Tiin's, obviously this was back when flick-fire missiles were a huge thing, so they have the flick-fire missiles right there, and they look good angled, but then they just changed it for stud shooters here on Obi-wan's. And I actually like the stud shooter look a little better because it kept the red on the wings and then the black guns, which are actually black. If they would have just made this piece black here on Saesee Tiin's, I think it would have been better, but that is obviously hindsight. So in both fighters, you can obviously open the cockpit and put in a Jedi, and then on Saesee Tiin's, you just slap your R2 droid or R4 droid, whatever kind of droid you want, in there, and the head doesn't actually have a spot, but in this one you can see that R4P17 she's put right here, and then the rest of her body is slapped in here, which is always good. I love that feature on this one. I wish I would have done it sooner, as it's pretty, it's an ingenious little thing, but it's really not that overly complicated. Now, in Saesee Tiin's fighter, for who knows what reason, you can detach the little escape pod if the fighter gets shot down, while in Obi-wan's you cannot do that. So they replaced the escape pod with the R2 section. Like, this section doesn't come off at all. And the other one on Saesee Tiin's is just connected by a Technic pin that you slide back on. Now, taking a look on the underside here, you can see there is two more flick-fire missiles, but in addition to that, you have the 3 landing gear and then the engines. taking a look at Obi-Wan's, I'll leave Saesee Tiin's fighter right there so you can see it. Looking at Obi-Wan's, there's no missiles on the underside. They replaced that with the mechanism to put on the hyperdrive ring. You do still have the landing gear here. They didn't add the other two landing gear on this side. They really could have. It's not really interfering with the hyperdrive lock, but it might not fit when it's actually on the ring. That's my only reasoning. And then obviously they added this little piece here to give the engines a little bit of length. And then in addition to that, they gave Obi-Wan the clip where you can store the lightsaber, which is my favorite thing ever. But just looking at it, just looking at the bottoms of both of them, you can see there is some very different build techniques on the wings and then the body itself, just by looking at the bottoms. Now, one thing they did change structurally, oh, I lied. Saesee Tiin doesn't have a clip. It's just on the other side in the middle of the body. So, I take back what I just said. Anyway, what they did do on Obi-Wan's fighter, different than the other fighters, is every other Jedi Starfighter, Delta 7-wise, has used these hinges to connect the wings and keep them at the right angle. Now, in Obi-Wan's, they used the free falling ones with these easier connector hinges, so you can move them freely and angle it. The angle gets a lot easier. The piece that used to hold the wings now, right here where my thumb is now the piece that stops the wings from going past a certain point. Where in this one, you don't really have that. The wings are kind of just locked in place. It's a little harder to put the wings on, actually. Either way, they're both structurally sturdy in the same regards, but Obi-Wan's was easier to put together, I think, in my opinion. Now, if you're looking at Obi-Wan's compared to Saesee Tiin's right now, Obi-Wan stands a little taller because you can angle the three landing gear however you want at Saesee Tiin's. Obi-Wan's, you have to put it to the length of this piece here, which gives it a little higher dimension. Last thing I want to point out is right here where you have this sticker detail, they instead of just making this a smooth thing, they gave some depth to it to Saesee Tiin's. I guess for the little escape pod section, where in Obi-Wan they just scrapped that whole thing and just slapped a sticker on it. So my thoughts, well, both Jedi Starfighters are nice. I think the improvements to the new Obi-Wan Starfighter make it a much better set overall, especially with the new R2 feature. And the stud shooters work a lot better than the flick-fire missiles ever did. So that's always cool. Not that Saesee Tiin's fighter was bad. It's just, it was a little pricey for what it was. I think it had 368 pieces. It was a little pricey for what it was. I mean, Jedi Starfighter being $40. The only other one that was Anakin's custom one, and that was 395 pieces. But it actually looked big enough. Anyway, that's just me rambling a little bit. So, now moving on to the second half of the comparison here, we're going to be taking a look at the two, we are not centered even close, we're going to be taking a look at the two Hyperdrive booster rings. Alright, so first off, little detail if you don't know anything about this set. The old Hyperdrive booster ring, mine is filthy, but that's just what happens after years of having it. Anyway, it was $49.99 and had 562 pieces, while the new Obi-Wan Hyperdrive ring has 825 pieces and cost $100. So double the price, 1.25 times the pieces, approximate. That's just, you know, me doing a quick calculation. So the first noticeable thing is the color. Even though they're both Obi-Wan Starfighters, that's funny. I didn't really realize that when I first did it. even though they're both Obi-Wan Starfighters, his older one is red and the newer one is blue. This one is when they're more customized. This one is back when everything was kind of standard. Everyone kind of used the red Jedi Starfighter before they started customizing them and making green and blah blah blah. This is actually a rental Obi-Wan's. It's not his official one. His red Jedi Starfighter, like, got destroyed in Episode 3. But going further with that, you can tell that the older Jedi Hyperdrive rings have only 2 engines, while the newer ones from the ETA class fighters have 6 engines. So that's the first noticeable difference, which changes the building, obviously, of both of them. And what I'm going to do is, I haven't done this in years, I'm going to try and get the fighter out of here, because the fighter is irrelevant. You don't need the fighter at all. But looking at the older ring, there's really no good way of holding it, where compared to the new ring, even while some people don't love it, they do give you the handle on the newer ring, and that allows you to actually hold it. But even still holding this one, it's still decently sturdy. It's not frail by any means. It is a ring of Technic pieces, so it's obviously not frail by any means. Just taking a quick look at some of the way it's built. Both rings are vaguely built in the same manner. The new ring has a double layer. It's actually 2 rings put together, which makes it a little more sturdy. And then obviously the addition of new pieces allowed the panels on the top to connect better. But taking a quick look here, you can see this whole section is very big and sturdy. It's a very large piece that you build, and then the older one, it's just 2 beams of Technic. So they didn't really care to put any detail or pieces into that. While this was only a $50 set back in the day, they had to allot for that, and it was already almost at 600 pieces as it was. So, any more pieces, and they would have probably had to raise the price, and then that just leads to messes. But looking at the bottom here, you can see it stands on 2 little tiles on the sides of 6x6 plate. On the new Obi-Wan fighter, they bring them in a little bit, so the flat plates are actually on the bottom, and they extend this whole middle section just to make it stand a little better, so it's not as wobbly. Like, you can push this one. I mean, they both stand pretty well, and it would take a considerable push to knock them either one over, but the new one is a little more sturdy in that regard too. Looking at the back, just to look at the engine detail, the newer one, you can see, they actually put time and effort into designing it, making the engines nice and big and all that. The old one, they just kind of slapped some escape pod pieces back in the day, and then put some blue pieces in the middle of these little wheel engines. So it's not the greatest, but if they ever remade the Episode 3 version, I don't really see them doing much different. They might make it, they would just make it more sturdy, make it look more appealing, but overall, structurally, they're both very nice. So the mechanisms are obviously very different, and that's what the change in pieces is really. This one has approximately probably 300 pieces, and the new ring has about 600 pieces. So if we look into the older one, what you do is you take the Jedi Starfighter, which has 2, you can't see that, it has 2 pins right here, and you just slide them in. It's a very easy method, but there's nothing really stopping it from falling off the back or anything when the fighter is connected, but it still fits nicely, and you don't have to worry about anything. And then you just push these things down. I don't know if you saw that, but, and then like I showed in my new review, for this one, you push this back, and then you clip that in there, and then it's in there. Like, it's not. I mean, that is assuming you do it correctly. Oh, you also break the engines off. That's awesome. That is just my luck. Oh, that's because I had that. Okay. Anyway, apart from me being stupid and breaking the engines off, it generally doesn't happen. The engines coming off. But they're both relatively clipped in the same way. And the only real difference, other than like new pieces and whatnot, is the fact that the Jedi Starfighters themselves are different. If this was another Episode 3 version, it'd probably be identical the way they did things. But who knows? Looking at the rings now, the new one is actually just a little bit taller, which is kind of interesting. And that might be because of the way the engines are built. I would imagine that's why that is. 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, they take up the same room, but like this panel here and this panel here are replaced by engines on both sides. But other than that, the rings are pretty identical. Even though that's kind of unfortunate, the rings are pretty identical. But the new one, I feel, looks better overall, and I like the giant engines. What was that? Why did that fall off? I don't even know where that came from. Oh, that had to have come. Okay, never mind. I know where that came from. Anyway, that is it for the comparison. Mainly the rings are close, but the fighters are different in some slight ways. Overall, if you like Obi-Wan, obviously get it. It's a cool exclusive set. The two older sets weren't exclusive. This one is. So, and obviously it has it's getting close to 900 pieces. It should have been a $90 set, but $100 is acceptable just from the fact that it's actually a big set. And they probably consider it two different sets that they threw together. But, oh well. Anyway, thanks for watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you wish. I appreciate it. And see you guys later.